actually pick the doctor's brain as well. So at the end of it, we will have some question and answers. And so please feel free to send me any questions you may have in the chat. Otherwise, I will be coming up with all the questions and we're not quite sure where that's going to take us. So please feel free to add that in. Without further ado, without any more delay, to get these things rolling, our speaker today is DTM Donny Crandell. He is an accredited speaker and 3-time World Championship of Public Speaking semifinalist, including placing in the top 10 in 2016. He is an author of 7 different devotional books and a doctoral dissertation. Audience Connection is a practical, relatable tool to develop greater speaking skills. We have all heard great speakers and great speeches, but we seldom ask what made them great. In Dr. Crandell's workshop, he will unfold and unpack today what those elements are. You will be informed, encouraged, and equipped as you participate in this timely workshop. If you are interested in owning your own copy or digital copy of Audience Connection, it can be ordered on Amazon. But please help me welcome Toastmaster DTM Donny Crandell as he shares the X factors of great speakers.
Thank you for that introduction. My name is Donny Crandell, and welcome to this great morning today. I know that you have heard some great speakers and some great speeches in your time. In fact, some of those great speeches and some of those great speakers you've listened to are here today. They're on this call right now. They're above you, below you, or to the side of you, depending on which box you look at. But here's the question. What is it that made their speech great? What was it that made them a great speaker? If you were to take a step back and drill down just a little bit into that question, I think what it all boils down to is really one thing. The X factor of great speakers and great speeches is audience connection. That's it. It's the ability of a speaker to connect with their audience. It's audience connection that causes a company, a business, an organization to call back a speaker 2, 3, 4 times. It's audience connection that will help people remember your name and remember your speech. It's the connection that you made with them. Audience connection is what every pastor or clergyman strives for when they get up in front of their congregations or their mosque or their churches, and they deliver their message. They are wanting to achieve audience connection. Every politician that stands up and gives their presentation is hoping that they will have such a connection with you that you will vote for their proposal, or they can win you over with their policy. But it all happens by audience connection. And yes, audience connection is what every Toastmaster wants whenever they deliver a speech, whether it's to 10 or 100, 1,000 or 10,000. So today we're going to dig into this idea a little bit more. So if you buy the premise with me, if you buy into the idea that the X factor of great speakers and great speeches is audience connection, then that brings up the next obvious question. How do we connect with an audience? That's what we're going to focus on today, but we're not going to look at many of the key ingredients and elements to do that. We're just going to look at one. Now, in my book, Audience Connection, I've written about 4 or 5 different elements of what it takes to really connect with an audience. This morning, we're just going to look, or this evening, we're just going to look at the one key element, and it is being natural. How in the world do we be natural? Here's the truth. When we can learn how to be ourselves and to be natural and to be authentic and to be real, and true to ourselves, that connects with an audience. We're going to look at 4 different ways on how to do that. But before we discuss some of those ways, we first need to look at this. We have a problem. We have a problem. And here's the problem. Speaking naturally doesn't come natural for us. I wished it did. It would be so much easier. We have to be intentional about being natural, which seems odd to me, but it's true. Former world champion of public speaking, Lance Miller, said this, and I quote, "Being natural is the hardest thing in public speaking." Being yourself is the hardest thing, and that's coming from a world champion of public speaking. If you want to be natural, it's going to take time, energy, self-awareness, courage, and a whole lot of practice, because we have to learn our style. And one of the things I want you to be sure that you don't do is, please, fellow Toastmasters, don't let Toastmasters Toastmaster the naturalness out of you. Let me say that again. Fellow Toastmasters, don't let Toastmasters Toastmaster the natural out of you. Instead, use the platform and the venue of Toastmasters as a platform and a medium through which you can learn how to be more natural. Learn how to be more yourself. While you're listening to this, I'd like for you just to chat in on the chat box there, because our wonderful, epic Toastmaster lady is going to talk about this at the end. Chat in why you think why it is so difficult and challenging for us to be natural as public speakers. And then hopefully we can kind of wrestle with those at the end of the workshop today. Just the other day, I was speaking to my wife, and this was after work. I came home and I was telling her about an experience I had that day. I said, "Hey, babe, I went to Juicy's today." Juicy's is a famous hamburger place in Reno, Nevada, where I live. And I was telling her that just when I was getting ready to place my order at the counter, there was a person from across the restaurant who yelled across and said, "Hey, I want to buy that guy's lunch." Well, I was in my military uniform at the time, because that's what I do as a day job. I'm a full-time military chaplain. And I looked at this guy and I thought, who are you? And why would you be doing this? Now, he didn't know that I had only walked in there to get a chocolate shake. I didn't even want a whole lunch. But after he offered to buy my whole lunch, I thought, well, shoot, maybe I should change my mind. Maybe I should go ahead and order some. No, I didn't do that. He walks over to the counter and he gives them his credit card, and he's a complete stranger to me. And here's what's so interesting. He was African-American, and as you can see, I'm Caucasian. And I thought, what is the motivation for him doing this? And after he did it, he didn't say anything. He just said, "Yeah, I want to do that for you." And I stood there thinking to myself, you know what? I want to give this guy a hug. And he was a big guy. And I thought, can I do that? Maybe just a handshake or a fist bump. We are in COVID. And then I thought, no, I'm going to give him a big old bear hug. So I reached out and I gave him a big old bear hug. And I said, "Man, thank you for doing that. You did not have to do that." Now, I'm telling my wife this story, going back to her. And then I say this part. And then, babe, I just thought to myself, if I just took a picture of that, that could be a picture of what unity could look like all across our world. And my wife said, "Hold on a second. Time out. Stop. Are you trying to give me a Toastmaster speech now? Or did this really happen?" I said, "No, this really happened." She said, "Huh." She said, "Okay, I was totally following you, and I was enjoying it, and I was feeling it. And then when you went to this click thing, you totally shifted into Toastmaster mode, and you lost me." And the reason why it's so important to be yourself and not fit into any other molds is because people can sense when you are being yourself when you speak, when it's coming from your heart and you're being authentic and it's real. And sometimes those of us who speak through the Toastmasters platform, we get, as my wife says, real speechy. and we get real Toastmastery. So many times she has said to me, Donny, why don't you just give speeches the way you talk in normal? Why don't you just be conversational? It would be so much more believable and so much more authentic if you would do that. So we have a problem, and the problem is we're not quite sure how to be natural, even though being natural is so important when it comes to us connecting with our audience. So I'm going to give you 4 ways on how we can be natural. And wherever you are right now, by the time I'm done with this workshop today, I'm hoping that you can be at least one more level than you are right now when it comes to being natural. You can have the tools, you can be equipped, you can have what you need to maybe incorporate some of what I'm saying that will increase your naturalness, which will then increase your audience connection. So to summarize up to this point, the X factor of great speeches and great speakers is audience connection. A key element in audience connection is your ability to be yourself and to be natural. So let's look at the very first way that we can do that. Everybody take your finger, point to number 1 and say, this is point number 1. Let me hear you. This is point number 1. That way we won't get confused on our points, because we're going to do that with each point. The first point is this: know thyself. Know thyself. All right, I'm going to give Plato, the philosopher, the credit for those 2 words. but I think they're foundational and they're really crucial, because the more you know yourself, the more you can be yourself when you speak. So understanding who you are allows you to operate in a sense of freedom, in a sense of openness, in a sense of vulnerability, in a sense of realness, to where people can just sense, okay, I'm really hearing what this woman has to say, what this man has to say, what this person has to say. Know yourself. Now, maybe you're thinking, okay, I want to know myself, and I do know myself, but I'm always changing. I'm evolving. I don't quite know where I am on some political issues. I don't know where I am in my value structure, in my belief system. That's okay. What you can do is be honest with where you are right now, wherever you are in your thinking, wherever you are in your beliefs, wherever you are on your convictions or your positions or your interests or whatever it might be. It's just a matter of being honest with where you are at the time. Now, this is a challenge for us and for me, because when we first start out speaking, we want to mimic other people who have great speaking traits. And we look over here and go, oh man, that person really has a great voice. I mean, they just command attention when they speak. Early on as a pastor, there was an evangelist that used to travel around, and he was a preacher, and his name was G. Stuart McWhorter. And I remember this one sermon that he gave. He was talking about the Grand Canyon. And as he gave the sermon, he said this: I remember the great Grand Canyon. As I went to that awesome chasm and looked over it, I said, something happened here. Bless my soul, glory be to God, glory be to God. And I thought, okay, maybe I should have a deep, booming voice like that preacher. Guess what? It didn't work. There was another pastor friend of mine, and he used to never finish his sentences. He would just do some type of a gesture, and you were supposed to fill in the word as the audience. For instance, he would say, hey, there was the 10 and the 2, and they were, and you're supposed to say, yeah, they were confrontational, or they were arguing, or they were. So I thought, okay, if I'm going to be a good communicator, I need to not say the last word in a sentence, and I need to go around, hey, thank you for doing your 5 to 7 minute speeches. Okay, that didn't work either. Here's what happened. People who know those other people, if they see you mimicking them, it's a turnoff to them, because they recognize that you're not being yourself. And everybody wants to see your style unfold. They want to see you and all of your uniqueness, which we're going to get to in just a moment. So we're talking about knowing yourself. Now, does this mean that we can't learn things from other people? Of course not. We can learn how to do pauses from this person and adopt it. We can learn how to have rhetorical devices from this person, and we can maybe incorporate that into our speaking style. We can learn gestures. We can learn different techniques and mechanics from so many different speakers. But the key is, as we adopt that, it needs to be filtered through our personality so that as it's incorporated in our speaking, it comes out as being real and being something that we believe in, some technique or some idea that we actually like, and we're not just borrowing something from someone else, kind of like plagiarism. The key is, the more we can talk in speeches like we talk in real life, the more believable we're going to be, the more authentic we're going to come across, and the more audience connection that we're going to have. So it's helpful to know yourself. It's helpful to know your personality, your background, your stories, your interests, your values, your beliefs, your pitfalls, your failures, your successes, your influences, your experiences, events in your life. All of that combines to make you you. And the more in touch you are with you, the better and more potential you have to be able to share you with those that are listening to you. In the military world, we call it our emotional intelligence. And it's basically, how in touch are you with yourself? And the more in touch you are, the better you will be able to communicate that and let that be open to other people so they can appreciate you for who you are. So number one, know thyself, because the more you know yourself, the more you can be yourself. All right, everybody hold up number 2 with me. We're on point number 2 right now. And this is uniqueness. Bring your uniqueness to the table. You have to, whatever it is that makes you, you. This is your heart, your ideas, your creativity, your personality. Because that's what people will appreciate. And if you're not operating within the wheelhouse of who you are, people are going to sense it. And you're not going to have the audience connection that you could have if you were being true to yourself. Even if you haven't arrived, even if you haven't perfected everything in your life, just being real with where you are in life and being yourself is going to really connect with other people, because they can sense that or they cannot sense that if it's not there. Let me give you some examples of being unique. And I'm going to take examples from world champions of public speakers. Once upon a time, about 2015, there was a guy from Saudi Arabia, and he came out on stage and he actually pulled a cigarette out of his pocket and he held it to his lips, acted like he was going to light it, looked around and said, "What?" And then he proceeded to tell us why we should all be smokers. Okay, that's a little bit of a distraction there. Muhammad Khatani was very comfortable, and it was very much his style to be able to use a visual of a cigarette and lighting it, even though we weren't supposed to smoke in this big building, and he didn't. That was his style. Now, that's not going to work for Donny Crandell. I don't even know how to hold one of those things. It's just not going to look comfortable to me. But it worked for him. He looked very natural. There's another world champion of public speaking who thought of this idea, hey, why don't I go out on stage and fall down face first, and then give part of my speech on my face, and then just kind of look up from the floor every now and then eventually I will get up. You know what? That worked for him. He was voted the world champion of public speaking, and that was his style, to talk about falling and failure, and he physically, literally did that. You know what? Not my style. I'm not going to fall on the stage. It's just not who I am. Let me give you another example, but it worked for Darren. Another example, there was this guy that I competed with in 2016, and he decided that it would be a really good idea to connect with the audience if he just reached into his pocket once he started his speech, pulled out a pair of underwear, and just slipped those on underneath his slacks and gave his entire speech in his tidy whities, all 7 minutes. Now, I didn't have tidy whities, so I couldn't do that. But I'm not going to wear my underwear on that stage. I don't have anything against Darren Tay. Hey, it worked for him. He became the world champion of public speaking. That's not what and I probably should have, because maybe I would have won, but I didn't pull out my underwear that day. But it was unique for them. So each one of these examples, from Muhammad to Darren Tay to Darren LaCroix and every other person, operated within what was unique to them. And there was something about that authenticity that connected with the audiences and does connect with an audience. Now, for me, when I became an accredited speaker, I thought, okay, what's going to highlight and reflect me, Donny Crandell? How can I share me with this crowd? And then I decided, well, I am a magician. Maybe I should just do a magic trick. So I actually did 2 magic tricks as part of my accredited speaker level 2 presentation. And I guess it went okay because I became an accredited speaker. I didn't do this one, but maybe you've seen this one before. It's a coloring book. And let's just say that you want to tell a story. If you were to tell a story, you can start with the blank canvas here. Make sure you can see that. There's nothing there. It starts with the blank canvas, and then you begin to create and write your story. And before long, this blank canvas begins to take on shape to your audience. And instead of it being blank, now you've actually got pictures of different things, different people. Hopefully you can see this on the screen. And it becomes a beautiful picture. It goes from blank and nothing to pictures. However, it's missing something. You know what it's missing? It's missing the Toastmaster touch. It needs to be developed. So we have to go to Toastmaster meetings, and we have to take some color and some good evaluations and some good suggestions. And we have to apply that to our picture so that this story now goes from just being a black and white story into a story of color, a story that takes on purpose and life. And it becomes a beautiful story because we've practiced it and developed it. And to think that the whole thing, came from just a blank canvas with nothing. All right, I hope you could appreciate that magic. I don't know. That was my unique style. That was the way I did business, and it actually worked for me. So I want to encourage you, bring your uniqueness to the table. Let me indulge me for a moment with a quick Bible story. Some of you may know I'm a chaplain during the day and I'm a pastor on the weekend. So let me give you a quick little story that I think explains this and illustrates this so perfectly. It's the story of David and Goliath. And I know many of you have heard that story. But if you remember that, there was this teenage warrior who kept care of the sheep, and his name was David. And he went down to the battle lines where his brothers and the Israelite army wanted to take on this person named Goliath, a 9-foot giant. And Goliath came out every day and he shouted his defiance at the Israelites and against their God. And when David heard this, David was bringing supplies to his brothers. He looked around and he said, "What's up with you guys? Why isn't anybody taking on this giant?" And David raised his hand and he said, "I'll do it." And then David got pushback from everyone around him. His brothers said, "Oh, you're just a conceited kid. Get out of here." King Saul said, "David, you're too young. You can't fight this guy. He's a seasoned champion." And then David, of course, got ridiculed by Goliath himself and said, "Who's this kid thinking he can come and take me on?" And then David finally gets the blessing of King Saul. And King Saul says, okay, David, if that's what you want to go do, you go do it. Everybody else was afraid. The entire Israelite army, every time Goliath came out and yelled at them, they took off running. Not David. He had this confidence level. But King Saul did say this, David, if you're going to fight that Goliath, you're going to need some armor. So King Saul took off his robe, his armor, and he gave it to David along with his weaponry. And he thought that David had everything he needed. He didn't think David was going to defeat Goliath. And then David tried to walk around in all this heavy guard from King Saul. And David said, I can't fight in this armor. I can't use this. I'm not comfortable with this. And so David took off the king's protective gear. He took off the king's armor and said, sorry, I cannot fight in your armor. I have to fight the way that I'm comfortable. And then David, as we know, he went to the brook and he got 5 small stones and a sling. And that's what he was used to. And that's what he brought to the table. And he was good with the sling and a stone. And we know the story that when he faced Goliath, he took that sling and a stone and he whipped it around and he hit Goliath right between the eyes. And David came out the victor. He was the winner and he actually killed Goliath, but he couldn't do it operating in somebody else's skin, doing it somebody else's way. He had to fight in his armor because that's what was unique to him. So I would encourage you, allow yourself to bring your uniqueness to the table, whatever that means. It could be a style that you have. It could be falling down on the stage. It could be wearing your underwear in public. It could be a magic trick. It could be so many different things. But the audience wants to feel and hear and see you. They want to know what's in your heart. They want to know what you think. They want you to draw back the curtains and see your personality. They don't want to see somebody else's. They want to know what is unique about you. So let it rip. Be yourself. Allow yourself to do whatever comes natural to you. So let's summarize. Here we are at point 2. The X factor of great speeches and great speakers, I believe, is audience connection. One of the key ingredients to audience connection is your ability to be natural. Number 1, the first way to be natural is to know yourself so that you can be yourself. Point number 2 is to bring your uniqueness to the table. Let people see the real you, because that's what they'll be attracted to. Not who you want to be, not who you're trying to be, but who you actually are. Point number 3. Everybody hold up 3 with me. We're on point number 3. This is your style of humor. And this is super important. Your style of humor, this is all part of you being natural and you connecting with an audience, is to know the way that you communicate humor to other people. And we all have a little bit different way. If you don't know your style of humor, you need to go on Dr. Google and you need to look up styles of humor. And then they will give you this little questionnaire, and it'll be about 20 to 30 questions. You fill it out, takes a couple minutes, and then they will tell you which one of your styles you actually have. Now, maybe you already know, which is great. But if you don't know, take that little test. Just don't do it during the workshop. You got to wait another 15 minutes before you do that. So here you are now wanting to communicate in your style of humor. Now, you could ask the question, do we need humor at all? I think we do. Now, it doesn't mean you have to be a comedian to connect with your audience. You don't have to be. But you do have to have some kind of a sense of humor. Did you know that one of the greatest traits that a woman looks for when she's looking for a man is his sense of humor? I don't know if that's true. I made that up. But I think that should be there if that's not a real statistic, because I think it is super important. You need to know your humor. Here's what I found out about mine. is that I have a self-deprecating humor, which I'm going to explain in just a moment. It's a self-deflating kind of humor, and I'm really comfortable with that. But some people are really good at telling a joke. You probably know them. They're in your club, or it's somebody you've heard before, and they can just tell a joke and it connects with the audience and people laugh and it's wonderful. Now, you try telling that same joke. And if that's not your style of humor, you're going to tell that joke and people are going to go, that was funny. It just doesn't work for you because it's not the way you communicate humor, and it doesn't bring any laughter and it doesn't bring any enjoyment to the audience. Now, there's some people that have dry humor and it's really funny and it communicates well. There's others that have sarcastic humor and they just speak in satire all the time. And it can be pretty funny as well. There's other people that have quick-witted humor, which is one of the reasons why I hate the fact that they told us we can't do callbacks in Toastmaster contests anymore, because I love callbacks and I love being able to speak on my feet about something another speaker said, because that's all part of that type of humor, of being quick-witted. But getting back to my style, and I'm double starting here. I want you to know your humor style. And if you don't know, do a little quiz with Dr. Google or ask someone around you, hey, when do I make you laugh? When does that actually happen? And they can give you some indications and some clues as to when you're funny and what communicates laughter to other people. But getting back to self-deprecating humor, when I was on the stage in 2016, I was telling people about me getting married at 48 years old. And then I went on to say, yeah, and if that isn't enough, getting married for the first time at 48 years old, I actually had a kid at 50 years old. At 50 years old, we had our first son, and he's totally healthy, and he's an awesome little guy. And then one of my friends said to me, wow, Donny, that's awesome. Having a kid at 50, you get to be a dad and a grandpa all at the same time. Okay, he thought it was funny. And then he went on to say, and you know what, Donny? Just think, right about the time you're done changing his diapers, it'll be time for him to start changing yours. And I said, well, that all depends. Okay, I don't know if the depends joke works in Saudi Arabia or not, but anyway, that was my sense of humor, was kind of being self-deflating, self-deprecating. In fact, I'm working on a book right now. It's my memoirs, and it's called The Stupid Things I Have Done. And it's all these stories. Hopefully my son will appreciate it one of these days. But it's these funny, true, memorable things I've said and done throughout my life. And it's all on the self-deprecating, self-deflating kind of a theme. And it works for me, but it may not work for you, or it may not work, or you may need to find your own style of humor. Another quick little story of something funny that happened was, I was walking up an escalator in San Antonio, Texas. I was with a friend of mine, and when we were in a business store of some kind. When I got to the top of that escalator, instead of stepping out onto the floor, my tennis shoe actually dug into the grooves of the escalator. And when it did, I curled up my toes so it wouldn't suck my entire shoe in. And then the escalator kept going and I'm stuck. I have one foot step that I've stepped off with now, and I have one shoe dug into the grooves of the escalator. This is a true story, San Antonio, Texas Riverwalk. And then I can't move. So somebody else is now coming up the escalator and they're looking at me stuck there going, why is this guy not moving? And then finally somebody said, hey, Donny, or so they said, my friend said, Donny, pull your foot out of your shoe. So I thought, that's a good idea. I pulled my foot out of my shoe. And when I did, I stepped off the escalator, but my shoe was still there and it was standing straight up, dug into the grooves of the escalator. So we stood off to the side and we watched people come up the escalator looking at my shoe. And I know they were thinking to themselves, where's the rest of his body? I mean, that's all that's left is his tennis shoe. We had the best time talking about that. And then the escalator person had to come, turn off the escalator. We had to wrestle the shoe out of the grooves. And then I went down to hopefully get my new pair of shoes because the escalator had eaten my shoe up. And the security down there said, you know what, sir, we're sorry you can't follow instructions on an escalator. We are so sorry, but we're not going to give you another pair of shoes. You know, I mean, we don't give classes on how to ride an escalator. We don't give tutoring on how to ride an escalator. It's just something we just expect that customers actually know how to do. Anyways, funny story, another stupid thing I've done in my life. And I actually am very comfortable talking about the failures in my life and actually making a joke about it and laughing at myself. Whatever your style of humor is, know your style, speak in that style, and let people enjoy your style. But just make sure it's your style. That's point number 3. So let me summarize. I believe the X factor of great speakers and great speeches is audience connection. Your ability to connect with an audience. To be able to connect with an audience, there's one key ingredient. It's being natural. And if you want to learn how to develop that and be natural, the first thing is to know thyself. The more you know yourself, the more you can be yourself when you speak. Also, it's bringing your uniqueness to the table because people want to see what makes you tick. They want to see behind the curtains of your soul. They want your added unique flavor to be brought to the table so they can appreciate that. Know your uniqueness. And third, develop your style of humor. And yes, you need to have some humor when you give a presentation. It's one of the ways we engage an audience. It's not the only way, but it's a great way. Lastly, and maybe this is my favorite, number 4, everybody raise that number 4. Number 4, tell your stories in your way. That's what I have written in my book here. And it's one of my biggest things is to learn how to tell your stories in your way. There's something about the stories that you have to share that have happened to you or you've experienced that bring a sense of confidence, credibility, authenticity, and people love stories. I just did an informational type of a presentation a couple weeks ago, and one of the people evaluated me, said, yeah, it was pretty good, but you didn't have enough stories. And I thought, I didn't have enough stories? I'm writing a book about stories of my life that I've done. You tell me I don't have enough stories? Stories communicate. Here's why. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. When you tell a story, you are painting a picture. Just like in my magic trick book here, you are painting a picture. And the picture that you paint with your story is worth 1,000 words just by telling that story. If a picture is worth 1,000 words, the picture you paint with your words is worth 1,000 words. Just one story can communicate so much truth. It can communicate so much about you. It can reveal who you are. It can share what matters to you and what's important to you. It all comes through storytelling. So I love to tell stories, and I'm going to tell one right now. And this is a fun one, and it's a true one. I was 18 years old, and I was trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my life. And I had my sights set on Point Loma Nazarene University in San Diego, California. I mean, it was such a nice campus. You can literally jump out the window into the ocean. I mean, it's that picturesque. Every college kid in the world would want to go to Point Loma Nazarene University. It's beautiful. The problem, we couldn't afford it. We didn't make enough money to send me, and we made too much for me to get much financial help, so I couldn't go there. So I decided that one day maybe I would go to Bible college. But I just didn't have the money to go to that either. One day, I get a call from my mom and dad. They just happened to be traveling through Reno, Nevada, where we have casinos, And they stopped at this casino called Boomtown. My mom calls on the phone and says, "Hey, son, pack your bags. You're going to college." "Mom, have you been drinking?" "Son, you know we don't drink. Your dad and I just bet $1 on an 8-spot Keno ticket. We hit all 8 numbers. We won $17,000, and you're going to Bible college." They came home, they had a stack of $100 bills. No lie. I mean, it was a stack of $100 bills. 2 months later, I packed my bags. I got in my white pickup truck that I had at the time, and I headed for Colorado Springs, Colorado, to be a student at Nazarene Bible College. Now, the first day of class, the professor said, "So great to have you all here. Let's just go around the room and share how you got here." Now, remember, I'm at Bible college. So when they came to me, I said, "Well, honestly, my mom and dad were on a vacation and they were going through Reno, Nevada, and they stopped at a casino and they bet $1 on an 8-spot Keno ticket. They hit all 8 of their numbers. They won $17,000, and that's what's covering my tuition right now." It got real quiet in the Bible college classroom. It was so awkwardly quiet that after about a minute, I stood up and I said, "The Lord works in mysterious ways." And everybody clapped after that. I'm pretty sure I was the only student at Nazarene Bible College on gambled winnings. I'm pretty sure that's the only time that's ever happened in the history of Bible college students. Well, everybody loves to hear that story. I love to tell that story. In fact, mom actually laminated their little Keno ticket and sent it to me, and I have it on our refrigerator with a little magnet right now to remember that God works in mysterious ways. Telling your stories, so important, because it's your stories that connect with other people. It's your stories that make you real. It's your stories that people can relate to. It's your stories that get you into the mind and the heart of other people in a way that they can appreciate you, in a way that they can understand you, in a way that you can kind of reveal yourself to other people without doing it in different ways. You can say almost anything you want to say through a story. You can communicate the most politically divisive idea that you want to communicate through a story in such a way that it's not politically divisive, because you've learned how to tell it in a story fashion. You can take something super important to you about parenting or life or work ethic or whatever, and just tell a story and communicate what you think about that through the story without ever having to be admonishing of another person. Stories cover a multitude of conflict if you learn how to tell your stories well. But that's what endears people to us, is our stories told in our way. Let me summarize, and then we're going to the conclusion. I believe that the X factor of great speeches and great speakers is audience connection. Audience connection happens when we are being real and natural when we speak. The way that we can do that is, first, to know thyself so you can be yourself. Secondly, to bring your uniqueness to the table. Third, to develop your style of humor, because that's what people will appreciate. And number 4 is to tell your stories in your way, because that will connect with an audience. Now, in conclusion, here's my tip to you. You don't have to be more than who you are. But please don't be less than who you are. Just be who you are. And let me say that again. You don't have to be more than who you are. Please don't be less than who you are. Just be who you are. Toastmasters, be yourself. And now my second conclusion to that conclusion is something I want to read in page 15 from my little book right here that kind of says it all. And this is how it goes. Let me read it to you. It says, the world needs to know who you are. The world needs to hear what you have to say. Fulfillment in life comes when we do the best with who we are and what we have. You owe it to yourself, your creator, and your audience to be yourself, to be your natural self. There are no two fingerprints in all the world that are the same. Audiences are wanting to know who you are. They're wanting to know the unique you, experience what you are feeling, hear what's in your heart, and be changed by your message. The more natural you speak, the greater your connection will be with yourself, your audience, and everyone around you. Fellow Toastmasters, be natural, be yourself. And if you're not really good at that yet, keep working at it. It takes some time. It takes some energy. It takes some discipline. It takes some self-awareness. It takes some courage. And it takes some practice. But if you really want to connect with your audience, take the time to ask yourself the question, am I being myself? Am I being natural? And if you're not sure if you are, one more little tip for you. If you're not sure if you are, ask somebody close to you. Just don't ask my wife, because she'll absolutely tell you, Donny, you're being a Toastmaster speaker right now. You need to be you. Don't ask her, but ask somebody else. Ask somebody else. Hey, you know me. Am I being myself here? I've got another Toastmaster friend of mine, and when he talks to me in normal conversational talk, man, I listen. He's got credibility with me. But for some reason, when he starts giving a speech, he like takes on this alter ego and becomes something that he totally isn't. He starts speaking in a tone that isn't natural to him. He starts acting in a way that doesn't reflect his true personality. And I just want to say to him, you know what? Don't give me a speech. Forget giving a speech. Just talk to me normal, because I can understand that. But when you try and talk to me in your speech tone and in your speech style, you ruin it, because I feel like I'm not hearing the real you. I'm not seeing the real you. So the more we can be conversational. Now, some of you may be thinking, okay, Donny, but you're being loud right now. You're having all this energy. Okay, that is really how I am in real life. Just be thankful you're not married to me. You don't have to put up with it. But this is really, truly me. I do have high energy. I do have optimism. I do try and keep a smile. I'm trying to be true to myself. It takes a while. Lance Miller is right. Being yourself is the hardest thing in public speaking. But blessed is the person who can learn how to do it and can develop that aspect in their life. Later on, we'll do a workshop perhaps on what it means to be likable, what it means to be confident, what it means to be disciplined, what it means to have an attitude of gratitude. All of those are also elements of connecting with an audience. But today, I just want you to focus on one thing, being natural. Fellow Toastmasters, go be yourself. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Donny. That was amazing. Full of humor, full of natural parts. I appreciate you so much for spending time with us in your morning to it. And I do have to say, I live in San Antonio, Texas, and I do know which escalator you're talking about, because there's a sign that says pick up feet, shoes can get stuck. I'm just going to let you know it's still there. So thank you so much for that. All right, so we do have a couple of questions coming through here. I want to start out because you asked the audience this morning or today parts of why it's hard for us to be natural, to be unique, ourselves during Toastmasters. And so we had some really great comments in it, but one of them said that we focus on memorizing our speeches. Can you speak to us a little bit about this? Do you memorize your speeches? How do you make it so that you know what you're talking about, but still continue having that real you?
I think that's a great question. And those of us who've competed in contests, all of us know that we basically have to memorize a speech because we can't look at our notes. However, today, when you give a keynote, the beautiful thing of becoming an accredited speaker is you get to look at your notes. It's beautiful, which I access the entire time, and you don't have to memorize. So those of you who are thinking about giving keynotes and workshops and becoming an accredited speaker, it's a beautiful thing when you don't have to memorize every word of your speech. Here's the problem that I found with memorizing. We forget. And I remember standing up there in front of people at the lectern during a contest, and I forgot one word. Well, that one word connected to the next words. And I was so programmed in my mind, and I was so memorized that by forgetting that one word, I forgot the entire rest of my speech. And I stood there thinking, man, I wish I had a copy of this speech in my back pocket to pull out and read and remind me where I'm at right now. Memorizing, as many professional speakers will tell you, is not ideal because it can take away from naturalness. Now, some people will tell you, you can memorize it so well that it actually becomes natural. You can memorize it that thoroughly. Okay, maybe I think it's better if you can have an outline with just your main points. And so, for instance, you could put escalator story without all the stuff to it. So when I just look at that escalator story, I know the story. So then I can just tell the story because I've lived it and I have experienced it. I do think it's helpful to memorize your introduction. I'm not sure it's absolutely necessary for your conclusion. Maybe I didn't memorize my conclusion today, as some of you are very aware of and thinking, wow, his conclusion was kind of all over the map. Wow, I didn't memorize it. Introduction, I actually did. So I think those are probably helpful. But here's the question. If memorizing brings you closer to being natural when you speak, then do it. But if it doesn't help you be more natural, then take it out of your menu, because you want to do whatever you can do that will help you have more naturalness, more being yourself, more authenticity, because that's going to connect with an audience. And you can't fake people out. I used to be a 6th grade teacher. I could tell them a bunch of stuff, and then some of them would look at me and say, okay, Mr. Crandell, but what really happened? You can't fake people out for very long. That's why you got to be yourself, because you will be found out. That's my take when it comes to memorizing speeches.
Beautifully done. I agree. Being on the stage from a young age, I had to memorize scripts. And as soon as I joined Toastmasters and they started talking about not memorizing, I think I did a happy dance because I was tired of it. It's not me. I understand that completely. So we were talking about humor. As any Toastmasters, trying our humor speech path, and one of the attendees had mentioned that it's difficult sometimes to find humor, especially when you're talking to an international audience and everyone has their different sense of humor. So can you touch on the topic of how you find humor or are able to bring out humor in in your stories to be able to reach the most amount of audience?
I think we have to look at what is generally understood by people of all cultures and in all places. So for instance, I'm not sure if when I talked about depends, I don't know, do people in Saudi Arabia understand what depends are? Those adult diapers? So I don't know, maybe that joke wasn't very good because it didn't fit the context. So I think we have to pick general enough stuff that it will almost appeal to any person, anywhere, any background, any context. The second thing I think we have to do is ask the question, will this audience appreciate this joke? Or will this audience, based on who they are, if you're talking to a group of engineers or computer experts at Intel, and you start talking about jokes that have to do with the rodeo and riding a saddle bronc, I mean, they may sit there and kind of like, huh? What? I don't get it. So I think we want to try as much as we can to match our humor to the context. But for most of us, we just kind of have to be ourselves. And our style of humor, I don't know if we can take on a different style of humor just because it's a different audience. I just think we have to take our style and try and adapt it the best we can and hope that it connects with that audience, because our style of humor is kind of our style of humor. Now we can adapt the jokes to fit their understanding. We can say something that's they can connect and relate to. For instance, I used the idea of Muhammad Katani because I knew I was talking to some people that would know him today, and how his natural style was lighting up a cigarette. Okay, I would not have said that to another crowd, but I was trying to connect with this audience by using him as an example. So I think when it comes to your humor, you have to be natural, you have to be yourself, but maybe you could say the kinds of things or use your humor to fit the context of the people without changing your style of humor. And there's probably a lot better answers to that out there. But I think at the end of the day, you have to use your humor, but you need to have humor. And here's what's beautiful. You could take the most simple story in your life and make it funny. You could take the most ordinary daily activity of your life and add humor to it. You can literally add humor to anything and everything, where people will give you a little smile or give you a little laugh. And it's not that hard to do. It just takes a little bit of training in that area on how to take a normal circumstance and add a little humor to it.
Absolutely agree with that. And you can adapt anything to it as well. I know for me personally, I work hard to build content, building from my personal experience, because that is the authentic. You're the expert of your own life, and that's what you can speak on mostly. So as a selfish question here, as I'm working to build content, sometimes it's hard for me to summon up stories, bring personal experience. Do you have any advice or suggestions of how you come up with your personal stories, or how you can readily access those to be able to build to your content and add to that uniqueness?
I really think everything that happens to you throughout any given day has the potential to become a story for your life. Just about anything, from what happened at the gas station when you filled up your car with gas and got a gallon of milk. I mean, you could be creative and make that into a story. You could talk about a conversation you had at work that day and something unique and creative about that, and actually draw a moral from that, or create a point from that. Every single thing that happens in life has the potential of being a story. A lot of the things that I talk about are just life experiences or events that I think, you know what, I'm going to turn that into a story. Like when my dad and I went fishing, and his hip popped out of socket when we were in a boat way upriver. His hip popped out, so I had to drive the boat back, and he couldn't move. So I pulled the truck and trailer up to the boat, put the boat on the trailer, and now me and my dad are traveling down the highway, and my dad is still in back of the boat with the fishing poles dangling off the back end like we're trolling down the highway. We have people going by honking, saying, catching anything? We're going down the highway with my dad still in the boat. Well, that really did happen. And I thought, you know what? There is a story there. There's a sermon in that. So I don't think it's that hard. I think we just you can almost take any experience you've had, any event you've had, and create a story from it. Here's the key as I see it. Every speech, we want people to know us as we give the speech, but we don't want the speech to be about us, because that will turn people off. People have better things to do than just hear about you. No offense, you're a great person, you have a lot to offer, but ultimately they want to know, how can what you have to say help me? How can you make me wiser, healthier, richer, and people really want that. But our stories, I think, can be taken from everyday life. The book of memoirs that I'm going to do are just things that have happened in life, and then trying to write the story and then share the story with a few people. And if it doesn't get any laughs and people don't connect to it, add a little bit to it. Hey, this is Toastmasters. We can add as much as we want to our stories and make them fun and make them real. But yeah, I think just everyday experiences. And I think that stories are probably the best way to communicate truth, vision, examples, information. I think it's better than statistics. I think it's better than even facts. I think it's better than other things. I think stories are the number one way to communicate an idea to people.
Absolutely agree. Fantastic. And I do hope that your dad caught something along that trolling experience. All right, I do want to open it up to the floor. If you are unable to put a chat message in to ask a question, I will open it up briefly. So if you would like to ask Donny a question yourself, please feel free and unmute yourself and ask. I do know personally, I take one-liner jokes and expand them into my personal life, allowing there to be some sort of humor, some sort of addition for people just to laugh. And then to your point, to be able to laugh at your own expense, to be able to put yourself into an awkward situation and be able to joke about it is what allows you to create that credibility with the audience as well.
Here's a question for us, Anna. Maybe somebody could take themselves off mute and answer. Which one of these 4 areas of being natural would you like to develop the most in your life right now? Is it knowing yourself so you can be yourself? Is it bringing your uniqueness to the table as you speak? Is it developing your style of humor? Or is it learning how to tell your stories in your way so that it connects with an audience? Of those 4, I'm just curious, which one would you most want to develop in your life right now?
Actually, that would be the 4th one, the story, telling your own story the own way, in a unique way. That would be the, because a story will drive the humor also. We can incorporate at the heart of it, story is there. In story, you can bring your uniqueness. In your story, you can bring what you are, who you are. So storytelling is very good, I think, that I want to.
I'm also seeing Tanya is saying style of humor. Suki is telling about bringing uniqueness to the table.
Yeah.
Absolutely love that.
So what about Anna? What?
What about Anna? I will honestly tell you, humor is the one greatest challenge. I think I'm hilarious. I laugh at my jokes all the time. I can laugh at myself, but creating that consistency, that piece where my humor can value or reflect onto those who are listening, that is something that I am truly part of. And I will agree with what Donny said completely, is being yourself, being unique, being you, because that's who you're expert on, is going to give you the greatest amount of connection with the audience. So I absolutely appreciate that. So Donny, thank you so much for spending your time with us, giving us wonderful points. I've taken notes. I've got stuff ready to take back to my club, and I believe everyone here has felt the same way. So I appreciate your time with us today. I will, again, thank you for your time. If anyone would like to stay for a moment, ask any questions, chat, I believe the floor will be open for just a few more minutes. But thank you guys for spending your time with us, and enjoy the rest of your weekend, your time. And remember, be yourself, be unique, and be epic.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Could I ask a question, please?
Yes, you can ask.
I want to know at that second point, sir, can you please tell, I mean, another example or something like that, how to add more uniqueness to your speech? I am a little bit struggling in that area. If there is any possible example or some a little bit more things to add, if possible.
Yeah, I think somebody else mentioned that too. Here's what I would say to start with is, how do you speak when you're not speaking to people? And try and bring that into your speeches, however that is natural for you. However you converse with people, try and be real and true to yourself when you give a speech to make sure that it lines up with how you talk and converse outside of giving the speeches. And then I think the other thing is, you have to ask yourself the question, what is unique about me? What is unique about my life? And I when I told you the story about me starting my ministry career on gambled winnings from my folks hitting the big one at Boomtown, that's a story that nobody else has. And it's a story that's personal to me and it's unique to me. And so I shared that with you. I think you have to look at your own life and say, what has happened to me? You've had experiences that nobody else has had. Share those experiences. You've had events that have happened in your life that nobody else has had. Those events need to be shared. You've had circumstances, maybe successes or failures that you've experienced in your life that nobody else has experienced. Those successes and those failures become ammunition, or they become potential foundational stuff for a speech, because it's part of your life. It's what makes you unique. And then here's another little tip. Ask somebody who knows you well, maybe one or two people, say, hey, what's unique about me? And let them answer you. And then build on that uniqueness. Say, oh, wow, really? I have a great smile. I didn't know I had a great smile. I'm going to smile more often because I've got a unique smile here. So if you don't know what's unique about yourself, even after asking questions, ask a couple people around you, hey, what do I have to offer? I'll guarantee you this. Is that Shehana? Is that how you say that? Shehana?
Yes.
Shehana, you've got gifts and strengths and talents and abilities and skills that you bring to the table that need to be shared with other people. And if I had a half hour with you and I said, okay, Shehana, we're going to write down all the things you're good at. We would begin to write it down, your skills, your talents. I don't know what it is. Maybe you could cook well. Maybe you're great with animals. Maybe you're great at planning vacations or whatever it might be. But I guarantee we could come up with a list of skills, strengths, talents, skills, and abilities in your life. And those all contribute to your uniqueness, to you being you. So the more you can identify your strengths, that's why some of us have actually taken this course called Strengths Finders, which is to help you find your strengths, because that's what's unique to you. Another little book I recommend to couples is called The 5 Love Languages. And this will help you discover what your primary love language is and help you understand other people's love language. Yeah. So I think we have to do a little exploring into who we are to understand our uniqueness. What's my love language? What are my strengths? How do I measure up on an emotional intelligence test? What kind of personality style do I have? And a lot of these are free tests you can take right on the internet. So I don't think we should spend our whole life focused on ourselves, but I do think we should take some time to know ourselves so that we can know what is unique about us. And then we can kind of be like David. We can fight in our armor instead of fighting in King Saul's armor, you know?
Thank you so much, sir, for that great introduction. And actually, I enjoyed today's session. Thank you so much for the whole session.
All right, awesome. I will turn the control back over to Umar to finish us off today.
So, first of all, warm and such a great appreciation for Donny. Such a wonderful and amazing workshop on being natural. I always have struggled with this in my life also as a speaker, to be natural, because sometimes you should not be felt as a robotic, like a mechanic. Okay, you are cramming something, 1, 2, 3 pointers or something. I always say that content should drive your delivery and being natural. So wonderful presentation. I noted down the 4 points also, and amazing tips given. And I love the sense of humor Donny has. That was awesome. And the magic you performed about the coloring book, amazing. And I would like to give some token of appreciation for distinguished Toastmaster Donny, and please accept it. And thank you very much. This is the certificate of appreciation from Area 31 Division F District 79, and wonderful and awesome workshop done. And secondly, our epic and Miss Epicness and filled with epicness, we have with us, who is next? 1 minute, let me share it. Okay, another, without her beautiful smile, her sense of humor, the energy that she brings onto the table, the epicness. Toastmaster Anna, thank you so much for taking up the master ceremony role, and it was an honor and pleasure to have you with us as the host. Thank you, each and every one of you, the wonderful audience. This is, as I told you, Area 31 is organizing. This is the first workshop of this program year, and there are many workshops to come. We have a next workshop planned on 20th August. Then in September, there we have 2 or 3 workshops. Every month there will be something going on, and a lot of learning this year, and you all are invited. Thank you very much. And with this, I would like to adjourn this session. It's time. When somebody wants to stay and chat, we can network. We can do it. Thank you. Thank you, Donny.
Thank you.
How was your experience, Donny?
You know, I really enjoyed it. It's a warm, friendly crowd. I'm not used to getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to give speeches, though. That's a little different. And I really prefer to be in person, because I feel like people get the best of me. I really haven't mastered the whole virtual thing yet at all, but I appreciate the opportunity. And this was just really fun. It's something I believe in. It kind of allowed me an opportunity to talk about something in my book. And I just think it's great to be able, for me to be able to say, yeah, I'm speaking in Saudi Arabia tomorrow. People are like, what? I thought COVID was happening. You're speaking in Saudi? Yeah, speaking in Saudi tomorrow. So it was really, really fun to have this platform to get to speak to people really around the world. What a cool, neat opportunity. Thank you so much, Umar, for that.
Yes, that's because courtesy Zoom airline, we can travel around the world without any passport or anything, and we can invite such great speakers to our clubs and conduct some beautiful workshops just because of that global village that we are at, the networking we are doing. Amazing. And guest Jim is there. Guest Jim.
Hi, yeah, greetings from Australia. I didn't know people were still using gallons in this world. I thought, what on earth is, what are gallons? You know, do they have 100 legs and walk around? I don't know, but very interesting. I enjoyed your speeches at the 2016 contest as well. The second place winner or third place was from my district, Vanessa Lee. Yeah. So, yeah, great workshop.
Thank you so much. And, you know, along that line, do you remember Aaron Beverly's introduction to his speech? His title was like 176 words.
So long.
Yeah.
And you know what he did is he brought his uniqueness to the table. That's what he did. Nobody else thought to do that because that wasn't anybody else's mindset. But man, by being himself, he became the world champion of public speaking. So that ties right into this whole idea. But thank you for remembering that speech. Yeah. Nice to meet you, Mr. Australian, sir.
Yeah, James, great. Wonderful.
I was wondering about gurus. I keep hearing workshops and they mention, you can't be the one that's figured something out. You must be the dumb one who's learned something from a book or from some guru or Methuselah, like the something, the hero's journey, that sort of thing. So I find it very hard to squeeze in a guru when in fact, I'm the smart one. I'm the one who figures things out.
Donny, you're on mute.
Yeah, I was just listening to him. I didn't have any comment for that. I was just listening.
Okay. Yes, that is all called sometimes we call it Messiah complex also. you are trying to save everyone. And yes, there is always scope for learning for everyone. I always believe. I have never seen a perfect speaker in my life. So there is no such thing as a perfect speaker. We always have some room for improvement, and that's how we grow. That is something incentive. Okay, good is the enemy of great. So don't settle for good. Go for great. Improvement always should be there. Thank you everyone for your workshop.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Donny. Wonderful and awesome workshop. Thank you. Thank you, Anna. Anna is left also. Huh? Awesome.